Hi guys, and welcome back to the Uncut Show. So, considering there isn't much new stuff out at the moment, me and Finton thought we'd dive back into an old classic that we both love. And that game literally brought Finton to tears, which, to be fair, is pretty easy to do, if I'm completely honest. And it really brought to life one of my own favourite superheroes. And I'm sure if you're looking at the title, you know who that character is, and that is Spiderman. So, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man PS4, but we're doing the PS5 remaster. So this is kind of a review of that. We're not going to go into certain things too much, like, for example, the story, because at this point, everybody knows what happens in that game. And if you don't worry, it won't be spoiled here. So go play it, enjoy it, and then play Miles Morales as well. We're going to have a video on Miles Morales out also, which I'm really looking forward to. There will be some spoilers in this video, but don't worry, they will be either right at the end of this. We're going to do a little discussion about the game, or we're thinking we might do another separate video where we just discuss our favorite things we weren't as big of fans of. And yeah, so we'll see what pans out, we'll see what happens. Me and Finton are very busy uni students. But with that, let's dive straight into the video. So let's talk about gameplay first. There haven't been very many changes to the gameplay of the game. Of course not, it's a remaster, that's absolutely fine. The swinging is the same, just feels a little bit quicker, and the combat is absolutely the same, and I love it because of that. But let's just get into a few things that have changed. Very minor things, so the load times are incredibly fast. Loading into the game, changing time of day is so quick, you just really can't believe it until you actually see it. And this extends to the combat trials as well in the open world. So you can go to the combat trials and press replay. Boom, it just starts. It's amazing. I had to re-download the PS4 version of the game to transfer my save file, which annoyed me because I have 300 megabytes of save data for that game. But it's a small price to pay. You just transfer it over and it's not that difficult. So yeah, I'm currently replaying the game all the way through the campaign, but I've completed the game 3 times before with all the DLC included, so I don't know if I'll completely finish the game, but I really want to experience it with these beautiful new graphics. But more on the gameplay side of things, we've got the DualSense controller, and much like in the Miles Morales game, it's still strangely underused, but I guess they're saving some of the cooler features that they're gonna use with that for the sequel, which is fine. But the vibrations and haptic feedback is not too evident. It's fine, it's there, but it's not always there. So obviously in Miles you had the Venom powers and you were feeling it a lot more, whereas Peter obviously doesn't have that. So you're not really feeling these crazy vibrations and stuff like that. But when you're hitting bad guys, you still do feel the vibrations in the controller, which is pretty great. The adaptive triggers are used, but only in a really minor way. But this is okay because I don't want insane, really hard to pull off swings. Like, the way they use the adaptive triggers is really, really good. They offer a really minimal amount of resistance to the swinging. This is absolutely fine. Swinging around New York City actually does feel, like I said previously, a little bit faster in the remaster. I tested it out on the open world in all of the graphical modes. There's 3 of them. We'll talk more about them in depth later on. And I tested it on the PS4 game too, just to be doubly sure. And even on 30 frames per second, so there's a 30 frames per second mode in the remaster. So I played it there and I played it on the original, and the game definitely feels a little bit quicker on the PS5, which is great. It makes you feel like Spider-Man, as they say. One really small change to the controls, but really, really appreciated, is the air trick button. So in the original game, you hold down triangle and circle and Spidey does some, he does some air flips and whatever else. But in Miles Morales, they changed this to the square button. And oh my god, it flows so much better as the square button. And they thankfully changed that in the remaster and made it it really makes a massive difference. I don't know what it is, but it feels so much more fluid and I love it. Another little content addition that they added to this game is the new suits. There's 3 new suits. Finton was very excited about the Amazing Spider-Man suit because those are his favorite Spider-Man movies. I know, it's ridiculous, but that's his preference. But that suit is really cool in the game. I will give him that. And there's 2 more suits. I'm not too sure what they are. I will flash them up on the screen at some point. So you will be seeing all 3 suits. They're all really, really cool. My favorite is the, I think it's called the upgraded power armor. It's like a white and red suit. It's really, really cool. But obviously, these are just skins. They don't change the gameplay in any meaningful sort of way. You just look cooler. So the content in the game is the same, but we knew that was going to be the case. And honestly, it didn't need changing because it was already fantastic. Now, biggest question on your mind, and in this case, arguably the most important, is the graphics. How does the game look? Does it run okay? Yes. The simple answer is just yes. It runs beautifully, and the graphics have been stepped up here, and the difference is noticeable. The original game is no slouch. It's beautiful. I love it, and I can easily go back to that PS4 version. But like I keep saying, I did do that, and then I jumped into the PS5 version, and that difference is noticeable. I'm playing it on a 4K 55-inch TV with HDR on, and oh my god, the game is gorgeous. I'm going to talk about all the different graphical modes now, so bear with me. I'll give a very comprehensive explanation of all of them. It can be a little bit tricky to understand if you don't know stuff. I don't know stuff, you know, I'm not a technical wizard, so I looked into some of it, but not too in depth. I'll just give you a basic rundown of them, and it'll all make sense. And then I'll tell you my favorite modes to play in. Make sure you try and guess, so leave a comment, try and guess which one my favorite is, and then I will tell you afterwards. But they all have pros and cons, so just bear with me and we'll go through them. So starting off, we've got Fidelity Mode. This runs at 4K with HDR and ray tracing enabled, but locks the game at 30 FPS. There are some other visual effects enabled that also enhance the lighting, and there are extra particle effects. And I'm not gonna lie, the ray tracing is really impressive. When you launch past the building and see Spiderman reflected in it, I seriously felt like I got transported back to being a kid a few years ago and watching the Sam Raimi trilogy. The lighting effects during the day, evening and night are all stunning, and the ray tracing really stands out the most at night in Times Square. I often go there and I just stand about and observe the lighting effects and reflections because I'm a massive nerd and I think it's really, really cool. But as I said, the game is capped at 30 FPS in this mode. If you've experienced the game in 60 FPS before and you desperately want to see ray tracing, then play the game in this mode because you won't miss those 60 frames a second. If you happen to switch to the 60 frames mode, you're going to really, really struggle to switch back to 30. Because even though the lighting effects are brilliant and the reflections are also great, you're not going to notice them too much unless you're looking out for them. You know, you need to slow down a bit to really appreciate that, because you're often moving so fast you just don't have time to look, right? You're moving around the city, you're swinging, you're not really always thinking about, damn, I can see Spider-Man in that building. But in the moments that you do, it is so cool, and just the fact that we have ray tracing on consoles is amazing. But yeah, next we've got the performance mode. So this runs at 4K. So it's still 4K, it's still HDR. A lot of things are HDR, but I love HDR. I literally only just got a TV with HDR enabled, so I'm only just discovering this magic, and I love it. So I will keep mentioning it. But it removes those additional effects and the ray tracing. So it's 4K HDR, but without those additional effects and without the really cool ray tracing. But you know what? This is such a good mode. It's great. The game is meant to be played at 60, in my opinion. It makes swinging feel so smooth, as well as combat feeling way better because of this fluidity. In all honesty, you won't miss those graphical flourishes too much, because that smooth frame rate really changes the entire dynamics of the game. And like I say, guys, you're moving through this game at an incredibly fast pace anyway. You know, you're not stopping all that much to look at reflections. You know, you're just swinging. And to be fair, something I noticed, I actually think the reflections in this mode are fine anyway. They're not ray traced reflections or anything, but they're still pretty good, pretty comprehensive. They look great, so you're not missing out on loads. But this brings us to the last graphical mode, which is awesome. It's called Performance RT, so Performance Ray Tracing Mode. This is great. It combines the best of both worlds, sort of. So you have that smooth 60 frames per second and some of the extra graphical flourishes of the Fidelity Mode. So you've got the ray tracing and you've got great particle effects. So you're probably thinking, what's the catch here? What's going on? It's only minor, but the mode isn't in 4K. It drops the resolution down to HD, which still looks great, but on our next-gen powerful machines, I'm sure we all want 4K ray tracing, no? Maybe that's just me, but there's that, and it lowers the population density, which you know, you won't even notice, to be honest, unless you're really, really scrutinizing. I did really scrutinize the game, obviously, because I am reviewing it. So I did scrutinize, and I did notice that there was a population drop. There's less traffic. I don't think it's a major issue, but if you want to feel like Spider-Man in a busy New York, then I guess that might bother you, but it really isn't too much of a problem. It also slightly lowers the quality of reflections and shadows, but this really isn't a problem. It's hardly noticeable. I switched between the two modes in the same places multiple times, and I really didn't notice that much. But this is honestly a really, really cool mode if you want 60 frames per second and ray tracing, and you're not as bothered about 4K. They're honestly all amazing graphical modes, and it's exciting that consoles can do this now. So have you managed to guess what my favorite mode is? If you have, drop it in the comments, let me know what you think it is. It might actually surprise you, but my favorite mode is actually the performance mode. In all honesty, it was close between this and the performance ray tracing mode, but I actually really appreciate having the game run at 4K. It makes me so satisfied to have it running on high resolution and a smooth 60. And like I was already saying, the ray tracing is cool and it's amazing that we can do that, but you're not noticing it unless you're slowing down and stopping. I just replayed the first mission, and I replayed that in performance ray tracing mode, and I was like, wow, this looks great. And then I put the game into ray tracing mode later on, and I was like, whoa, okay, 4K ray tracing is awesome, but that FPS drop though. That FPS drop really hits. But yeah, I often do switch between regular performance mode and ray tracing performance mode. Very, very occasionally I put it onto Fidelity, but like I say, the FPS drop makes it feel like it's not really worth it. But that's just in my opinion. You might not mind. What the advice I'll give is, if you want to play 4K with ray tracing, start the game in Fidelity mode. That's what the game defaults to, and play the game in Fidelity mode, and you won't notice. Like I said previously, if you accidentally switch over to performance mode and start playing in performance, damn, you're really going to notice that drop in frames when you go back to Fidelity. So a word of warning is what I'm giving there. I want to briefly touch upon the story, but not too much, just because the story is the same as in the original, but with all the DLC bundled in this time. So, you know, there's no real additional content here, but if you didn't play the DLC in the original game, it's all here, and it looks better and runs better, so it's there if you want it. And I think it's a story that all Spider-Man fans should experience. You know, if you are a fan of Spider-Man, you should definitely play this game. Full disclosure, the DLC story content is pretty average as it goes, but provides with more of an excuse to play that core gameplay loop of swinging, fighting, hunting collectibles, and completing the little open world challenges that are out in the game. There's some hints in the DLC about certain characters who I won't spoil, and overall just adds to the main story of the game, further fleshing out this version of New York City, even if the story is fairly average, like I say. So if you're really, really invested into this game and into this game's world, I definitely recommend that you play the DLC. You're not going to be blown away by anything, but it's still fun to experience. So, in conclusion, is this worth getting? I'm saying yes. Bear in mind, I've played the campaign 3 times all the way through, as well as all the DLC 3 times all the way through, and I'm still excited about replaying it for the 4th time on this next gen upgrade. All the fundamental things you loved about the game are still present. The game just looks and runs better now. The only thing I can think of that may possibly put you off the game is that you have to own Miles Morales Deluxe Edition or pay an extra £20 for the upgrade on Miles Morales. But, you know, you might think this is an issue, but in all honesty, Miles Morales is an excellent game and it's worth buying by itself. So the extra £20 for this game really feels like a worthwhile addition, and this game is just great. I think if you haven't experienced it on PS4, PS5 is the place to experience it, and even if you have experienced it before, it's just worth doing again because it's so much fun. But that's my review on it, guys. I'm saying you should definitely buy it. I'm not going to put a number on this one. I think that feels a bit arbitrary for this game. I think it's very obvious that I think you should go and get it. Let me know what you think of the game if you've got it. Have you only played the PS4 original? Have you got a PS5? Obviously, they're still hard to come by. Drop everything in the comments. Let us know what you want us to review next time, and thank you all for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, guys.